Okay, hello everybody. My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Let me just make sure that my audio is good here. Hello everybody. And it's good. Fantastic. Thank you all so much for coming back. I actually see there are a couple viewers. Thank you for whoever you are that you've come back. Had a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, and my internet just disappeared for 2 hours. I don't know why. I don't know what the hell happened. It was just, there, everything was cool, and then suddenly right into the middle of the stream, just gone. So, sorry. I figure we'll just start over from the very beginning. And thank you for coming back. Hey, Lewis, how you doing, man? Thank you for coming back, dude. Appreciate it. Anyway, I completely forgot where we were at this morning, so I'm just gonna start from the beginning about what I was talking about. So the first thing I was talking about this morning was the $15 minimum wage and how that didn't pass, which is kind of messed up, very disappointing. I'm sure. I mean, I'm disappointed because the fact is that it doesn't really have much of a chance of passing without going through, reconciliation, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm sure, if you follow politics, you've probably heard a lot about this recently. The Democrats have a majority in the Senate, right? But, that doesn't mean that they can pass whatever they want because of the filibuster rule. The cloture vote is what it's called, right? And basically, in order to get past that, they need 60 votes in the Senate to pass any particular, piece of legislation. So chances are they're not going to get very much done, throughout, as far as actual legislation goes. But there are certain situations, of course, where they can, just get a normal majority rule vote, and it has to do with things that go through budget reconciliation, right? So that's what they're passing, Oh, yeah, hey, Dynacat, how you doing? Yeah, actually, my internet, disappeared. It was buffering, and then it just died, and then I had no internet access for, 2 hours. So, yeah, that's what happened. Sorry, dude. Thank you for coming back, though. Appreciate it. Anyway, so, that means that in order to... They're using that process to, for example, try to pass COVID relief, right? That kind of thing. And so the idea was to tie an increase in the minimum wage to, to COVID relief, and so that it can go through this special kind of, budget reconciliation process, and that way they would only have a normal majority vote on it. And there were, they didn't want to do it. The Democrats didn't want to do it. And so Bernie Sanders actually forced a vote on it, and 8 of the Democrats actually voted against it, which includes Joe Manchin, of course, Kristen Sinema, and then 2 Democrat, one from Delaware, and then a couple of others, right? I don't know. I don't have all their names in front of me. And basically, that's why we're not getting an increase in the minimum wage, which is really fucked up. Now whether or not you want, whether you believe the increase in the minimum wage will result in, companies going out of business or jobs being lost, whatever, that doesn't matter. It almost is irrelevant, kind of. The fact is that, these are people who ran on raising the minimum wage, right? And they pretty much just, threw it under the bus, right? That doesn't matter. I mean, they ran, this is what they promised the voters. And then when it came time for them to deliver, they chose not to deliver. Now, whatever their reasons are, maybe they're thinking strategically or some shit. I don't know. I don't care. The fact is they lied to us, right? And that's going to piss a lot of people off. So, so you asked there, Lewis, if we could introduce minimum wage increase in a later legislation, please. Well, They could, but the same thing will happen. There just isn't the enough support, not only from Republicans but also Democrats as well, right? There's just not enough support, and apparently there's a limit to how many times they can do these types of budget reconciliation type votes. They can only do it a certain number of times. I'm not sure how many. You know, um, but it's kind of it's very disappointing, because here's the thing about it is, my hot take on that is that, we know the Republicans will never give this to us. It's just not going to happen. They're never, they were in charge, for 4 years, right? We didn't get shit, right? All throughout the Obama, all throughout the Obama years as well, they blocked any kind of vote when it comes to stuff like this as well. Of course, then again, the Democrats didn't really push for it either, but still, it's like, we know we're not getting shit when it comes to the Republicans. We know we're not getting shit. We know that a lot of Republicans and conservatives don't even support the idea of a minimum wage at all, and some of them want just total unfettered, free market wages. The free market to determine wages, which means like, oh well, if somebody wants to work for 3 cents an hour, then who am I to tell them not to? Subscribing to that like Ayn Rand shit. The idea that the free market will determine wages is complete bullshit. It's complete bullshit, and any fucking rational thinking person who looks at the evidence should be able to tell you the same. But these are Republicans we're talking about here. So we know they're not giving us shit. So if we want it, it's got to come from our side. And it's just, the reality is that, our side is not unified. That's the reality. The reality is that, the Democrats are not really a progressive party. They're not even really a leftist party. Not really. The Democrats, for the most part, are a center-right party. They are what would be considered everywhere else in the Western world the conservatives. And our Republicans would be considered, extremely far right, like, borderline fascist parties everywhere else in the world. Right? So that's what we're dealing with. So when you vote Democrat, just remember what you're voting for, right? Now, does that mean you should never vote for a Democrat? No. I mean, I vote Democrat, because I understand that the reason I vote for Democrats is because I know that the opposition is worse. That's a shitty reason to vote for something. It's shitty. I'm not going to try to defend that at all, But I also know that if I try to vote Green or some shit like that, like, they're also ineffective, and they're not going to fucking, right? The Green Party, I mean, I could talk about the Green Party and why I don't support them anymore. I used to support the Green Party, but I don't think that they're a serious party. And I can get into that later, if you want to, if you guys want to hear my take on that. But put it like, it's unfortunate, but this is the reality of our system. And until we can somehow affect some type of systematic change, institutional change to the way our system works, something like, ranked choice voting, something like that, until we get something like that, like in that way, or unless we can push, elements of the Democratic or Republican Party further to the left, this is kind of what we've got to work with. And I think the country, the reason why I vote Democrat is because I think the country is kind of in crisis mode, and allowing Republicans to remain in power is just hastening the demise of the United States. Right. Anyway, so yeah, this is the it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that they're too chicken shit to like go through with it. And for our part, what we should be doing is we should be calling them and writing them letters and sending them emails and demonstrating and all of those things, because that's how we need to get their attention. People like Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. If you don't live in Joe Manchin's state, I think he's from, where the fuck is he from again? I don't know. I can't remember. He's from the deep south in some fucking place, or, I know, Kristen Sinema is like from like Maine or some shit like that, the upper, She's from the Northeast. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't live in their states, that's fine. You can still call them. You can still send them letters. I mean, you know, just don't tell them that you don't live in their states. Right? Seriously, you can still put political pressure on them because the choices they make affect all of us. You know what I mean? Like, those people, by blocking this legislation, have affected the entire country, millions and millions of people. Everybody out there who works a minimum wage job but has rent to pay. That's the thing about minimum wage. Everybody says it's like, oh, it's for kids, their jobs for children. Teenagers, you're not supposed to work at a minimum wage job and try to raise a family or shit like that. Well, yeah, maybe you're not supposed to, but that's the reality. People do, because in a lot of places you can't get jobs that, for whatever reason, and in a lot of places there aren't that many jobs. And, maybe you're not qualified for them, right? Maybe you didn't get a chance to go to college, right? Maybe you did go to college, but, the industry you used to work in has, like, automated, and now you're gone, Maybe you used to be, like, say, a coal miner. Your coal mine closed, you know what I mean? And there's no other jobs around, and now you're working at McDonald's. And it's like you go from making fucking $70,000 a year to $15,000 a year, That's what you make. At $7 an hour, it's $15,000 a year. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. My fucking rent costs more than that. Not even, well, my mortgage. I mean, I own my house, but, there's no fucking way. Like, that's what comes out to about $1,000, I think maybe like $1,100 a month, and that's if you work full time. And most places won't give you full time. That's the other thing that they don't tell you. That's the other thing, like, whenever you hear discussion of this in the news or something, they don't mention that part. They don't mention that, yeah, okay, most jobs that pay minimum wage are part-time. Whether you work at a restaurant, whether you work retail, at the mall or some shit like that, whether you're like fucking, working as a dock worker, that kind of thing, right? You'll get, 30 hours. You work in a grocery store, for example, whatever. A lot of places, like, for example, in California, if you work full-time, then you're entitled to benefits, and they have to pay you benefits. So a lot of places will not schedule you for full time. I used to work at a Starbucks, back in the early aughts, up until 2004, I worked at a Starbucks, right? I would get 39 and a half hours. It was such bullshit. It was like, and this is like, I worked at Starbucks for like 5 years. And after 5 years, cause like minimum wage back then was like fucking $5.45, right? After 5 years, I was like fucking, a shift lead person and all this shit. I still only made like $12 an hour, right? After being there for like half a decade and shit. And I still didn't get full time, and I still didn't have full benefits. I had the usual benefits they gave to everybody, but if you work full time, then, you're entitled to certain rights in California. And it's like, so I would get 39 and a half hours. It was such bullshit. So I'm essentially working full time except for that last day where I get like an extra half hour off. Like, shit like that happens all the time. You know what I mean? So there's a million different ways that a company can exploit somebody, especially when it's a minimum wage job that nobody gives a fuck about. Right? So I think that's what's really kind of pissing people off right now. And I think with this vote, I think the Democrats blew it. They blew it, and people are going to remember this in 2022, and it's going to be no surprise when they lose the Senate and basically Joe Biden's presidency just goes bye-bye. That's it. Nothing's going to happen. It's just going to be obstruction. It's already being obstructed, because the other thing that the news doesn't mention when we talk about the $15 minimum wage, and all this, is that every single Republican voted against it, all 50 of them, right? So that's like, yeah, we expected them to, but how come nobody's talking about that? How come there's not one fucking Republican, not one of them, who understands how shitty it is to work for $7 an hour, right? Not fucking one of them, And the thing is that these people, the conservatives, Republicans, right? Who do you think fucking votes for these people? Like, I mean, there's far more, like in saying Kentucky, there's far more people who make minimum fucking wage than there are, like, middle class, like, decent paying jobs, right? So it's like, when everybody says like the Republicans and conservatives, their voting base is like middle class white people in suburbs or whatever. It's like, yeah, it is, but plenty of poor people have to vote for them or else they wouldn't get elected, right? Plenty of poor people who make minimum wage, who don't have shit, who are struggling just like everybody else, are also, for some reason, highly fucking ridiculously conservative to the point where they will vote down their own self-interest. You know what I mean? And it's fucked up. Those are the people we got to reach out to, Those are the people that the Democrats have to, if they want to survive, they have to reach out to them. And by basically screwing them out of a fucking raise, right, out of a wage increase that would pull them out of poverty, it's not going to fucking help. So now the guys that are living in Alabama and Kentucky and all that shit, who may have had a little bit of hope that, hey, maybe next month, I'll be able to make my fucking car payment and my rent. I won't have to choose between one or the other. I'll be able to buy food and, like, maybe a birthday present or something. Now all those people are going to say, hey, I just got screwed. And they're not going to blame the 50 Republicans that voted to keep them poor. They're going to blame the Democrats, even though it was 8 Democrats, and the 8 Democrats were highly fucking conservative Democrats. So they're going to blame Joe Biden, right? And they're going to blame, the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, and blah, 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 whoever Fox News tells them. It's really fucked up. I think they really, really, really dropped the ball on this. And anyway, just wanted to give a hot take on that, and before we get into the meat of what I wanted to talk about today, one more other little tidbit before we get into the main theme, have we already been streaming for shit? It's already been almost 20 minutes. I've ranted for 20 minutes already. Dang. One more thing I wanted to talk about is the lifting of pandemic restrictions in several states, which is kind of the exact opposite way that we want to go. I don't know if you've heard about this, so in Texas and Alabama and Florida, they're basically just removing all of the pandemic restrictions at all. Texas has decided to just remove all of it, no more mask mandates. All businesses are now allowed to open at 100%, and it's just like the pandemic's over in Texas. If you live in Texas, a business cannot kick somebody out for not wearing a mask anymore, and if you are a local locality like a city or a town government or something like that, you are not allowed to enforce a mask mandate anymore. So yeah, so much for states' rights there. That's one thing conservatives are always talking about. The state, in this case, should not be able to impose stuff onto cities or whatever. And it's like, yeah, they don't seem to give a shit about it when they do it. But anyway, and here's the thing. So you're hearing a lot about this, and like even Joe Biden made a controversial statement where he compared these people to Neanderthals. I think I got his quote here. It says, the last thing we need is the Neanderthal thinking that in the meantime, everything's fine. Take off your mask. Forget it. It still matters. And that pissed off a lot of Republicans because it's the first thing that Joe Biden has said that is even close to being controversial, So if you go on right-wing Twitter and all this stuff, you see all these people, how dare you call me a Neanderthal and all this other shit. Neanderthal, I guess is how you pronounce it. I always thought it was Neanderthal, but I guess you don't pronounce the H. But anyway, that is all over right-wing Twitter. People, right-wingers and Republicans and stuff clutching their pearls about how they're so insulted. And it's so funny when conservatives and Republicans and shit pretend to be insulted because, we just kind of went through 4 years of, like, the president of the United States using Twitter to personally cyberbully people and call people names. And, so this is one of those complaints that Republicans never really get to complain about ever again. Trump kind of blew that for them. So calling someone a Neanderthal because they're dumb and they're taking their fucking mask off and they're all gonna die is like such small potatoes, right? When it comes to insults, you know what I mean? And the thing is that Joe Biden, I think, is correct because it's stupid. The pandemic is not over, even though we have we do have some good news when it comes to things like vaccinations and stuff, and we have a large number of people being vaccinated, blah blah blah, stuff like that. That's great. That's fantastic, but we're not even anywhere close. Texas, for example, has 7% of its people currently vaccinated, and to get, herd immunity before you can reopen, you need to have like 90%. So not even close. And this is just going to result in, thousands and thousands of people dying. It's going to result in yet another wave, right? But here's the thing. I can understand. First off, because, there's also been some loosening of restrictions in other states, including California, including the state that I'm in. Restaurants are open again in California for outside dining only, But stuff like that, we're not in complete lockdown anymore. And believe me when I say people are taking advantage of it. I go to pick up food and it's like there's too many people out here. There's a little area where I live where there's a bunch of restaurants and it's just packed to the freaking gills with people eating. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, damn, not all of these people can't be vaccinated, right? And it's still very much a danger. It's if you go out to eat, or if you go out to anywhere, and you're not wearing a mask and nobody around you is wearing a mask, and you are pretty much putting yourself at risk. You know what I mean? And that's just where we're at right now. It's not ready. And the thing is, dude, in like 3 more months, if we just keep going at the pace we're at now, in like 3 months, it'll get there. You know what I mean? We're vaccinating like essentially close to 1 million people a day, right? And so like he said, he came out and said, if you believe Joe Biden for what he's saying, that we'll have enough vaccines for every single person in the country by May, then it's like, dude, what is May's like 3 months away? Let's just hang in there, just do a little bit longer. You know what I mean? Anyway, but here's the thing. Why are they reopening? Okay. Well, the reason why these states are reopening, and even states like California, which are loosening restrictions, the reason why that's happening is because the states are running out of money. It takes money to run a lockdown. You have to, people are on unemployment. That's the biggest expense right now for the states, unemployment. More people that are on unemployment now than they ever could have anticipated for. So the states are having to basically borrow money, and that was part of the last COVID package, was money to extend unemployment, and it's part of this COVID package too. And this one's about to run out. The states, unfortunately, unlike the federal government, are not allowed to print their own currency. They're not allowed to go into debt. A state has to, if a state goes into debt, they have to issue bonds, right? The federal government can just print as much money as they want, and they don't even print it, really. Like, money is essentially just created on computer screens nowadays. Most of it is just, the Federal Reserve just does a transfers money into one of the regional banks or whatever. Where did that money come from? It didn't exist before, because money doesn't exist. It's now just all bits in a computer screen, pixels and shit on a computer screen. So when they talk about, we're printing money off, no, they don't. They don't ever print the fucking money anymore. It's just there, right? So quantitative easing, you know what I mean? Like, et cetera, et cetera. So the states are not allowed to do that. The states actually have to run a budget and they can't afford it. They cannot afford to pay out all of the unemployment that people have been on for like fucking 99 weeks at this point or something ridiculous like that, right? And so they don't have a choice. This is because we're not getting sufficient COVID relief from the government. The last COVID relief is about to run out. You know, the one that's in Congress is still fucking stalling. Every day that goes by, it's costing the states millions and millions of dollars. Right? The Fed's not helping them, so the only fucking choice they have is to reopen. Hope their economy recovers a little, so that people will start hiring again, so they don't have to pay all of these unemployment. That's what it is. In addition to other costs as well. It's not just unemployment. I mean, there's other costs associated with the pandemic too, that are also but that's one of the main drivers, is that they can't afford it. They cannot. There's no help going to people anymore, right? People are running out of money themselves. There's an entire foreclosure epidemic, which has just been delayed. Sorry, I hit the camera there. It's just been delayed, which is no one's even really talking about that. Like right now, they've basically they've put a halt on a restriction on evictions right now. So you can't be evicted from your house, right? But that hasn't stopped the back rents from piling up. So there's people out there now, people who haven't worked in a year, who have not been able to pay their rent in a year, who can't be evicted, but now owe tens of thousands of dollars in back rent. So what happens when that disappears? What happens when it's like, okay, pandemic over, go out, get a job. Oh, by the way, your fucking rent's due, and you now owe us, $75,000, right? When your rent was $1,500 a month or something, right? And you still haven't got a job yet. What the fuck are you gonna do? Right? There's going to be massive amounts of evictions once that finally gets to go through, right? Hundreds of thousands of people are going to be evicted. That's coming. That's going to happen very soon. And all of this costs money. Homeless people cost the state money. There's going to be a massive increase in homeless people. The state has to absorb those people through services or whatnot. Try to help them out. I mean, are we going to get any help from the Fed because of this? No. The Republicans are going to block every single fucking bit of this. Just watch, and because that's the thing, is that there will be legislation proposed to say, hey, fucking 5 million people just got homeless. Dude, we got to do something. We have to help these people. We have to make some, and they could easily pass a law saying, okay, here's some, relief in that regard. Here's some relief. You can apply for federal dollars to help pay your back rent, or if you own a property and you haven't been getting paid in your back rent, you can forgive some of it, and we'll subsidize some of you for some of that. What they should have done, which is what a lot of other countries did, is what they should have done is, back when all the shit started, passed a law that said, okay, rents are now suspended, and that way it doesn't occur, right? As it incur or whatever the fuck that word is. It doesn't pile up, right? I can't remember the word. As this is happening, right? That way, when it goes back to normal, the people don't get fucked. And that's not what happened. They didn't do that because, Republicans, right? Because Trump. Because the Trump and the Republicans didn't give a fuck when it happened. They didn't care about that. They didn't think forward enough, right? Because they were too busy telling people to fucking inject hydroxychloroquine into their fucking veins, right? And pretending that it was all just another seasonal flu, in order to set up the fucking infrastructure that would prevent this crisis from happening. And now a Democrat, now Joe Biden has to deal with it. That's what's going to happen. Just watch. So if you're out there and you owe a shitload of money in your back rent, man, I don't know, just get ready. Try to find a place to live, maybe. Maybe you can crash with some relatives or some shit. But that's coming, and don't expect any help from the government. Don't expect, Don't expect the current Congress to pass anything that's going to help you, because they won't. They won't, because of Republicans. Right? You know, Republicans and the 8 conservative Democrats that side with them, that did shit like stop the $15 minimum wage, you know. It's really fucking shitty. It's shitty when you can see a problem coming, you know, from a mile away, and still nobody does anything about it. You know, that's just the country that we fucking live in. So, oy oy oy. I want to make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene for a little while. Um, I wonder if this is going to kill my stream, but maybe if I set it up in such a way that, you know, because I have this video, right, which is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. Whoa, what the hell just happened? Stop. Go back. All right, hang on 1 second here. Let me do this one more time. I have this video here of Caitlin Bennett from Liberty Hangout. So you guys know who Liberty Hangout is. Liberty Hangout is it's a you know, a conservative organization, fake news organization run by Caitlin Bennett. Caitlin Bennett is a known as the gun girl, right? She's kind of like a female Steven Crowder wannabe. You know, she goes out, she talks to college students, shit like that, and repeatedly just gets owned. I don't know if you've ever watched Caitlin Bennett or before, but she's an idiot. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. Her whole shtick is she's basically trying to rip off Steven Crowder, you know, but she's too stupid to realize. She's too stupid to realize when she's losing an argument. So she'll go up to somebody, so she'll go up to some college kid, and she'll ask them some questions about politics, and the college kid will 9 times out of 10 run, you know, intellectual circles around this girl, and she's kind of too dumb to understand when she's like getting fucking annihilated. That's her whole thing. And the other thing that she's famous for is that there's a picture out there that shows her at a party where she's pooped her pants. And, you know, it doesn't show her face, so she has that plausible deniability, saying that's not me. But yeah, dude, it's fucking her. Right? It's her, and she's passed out at a party and has pooped herself. And it's like a metric fuck ton of fucking feces all over this woman. It's I don't know, look it up. Look it up if you're into that kind of thing. I'm not going to post any links to that. All I am doing is telling you that it exists, and she is notorious for that. So people call her the poop girl, you know. She got famous on, I think, on Instagram for posting pictures of herself with like guns or whatever, some ridiculous bullshit like that. And anyway, she runs a thing called Liberty Hangout, and they're kind of like, you know, they do commentary and fake news, shit like that. And you know, she's kind of a white nationalist also, Caitlin Bennett. Right? Has said some pretty damning things that are just, you know, indistinguishable from like fucking white nationalism on her Twitter account. She very briefly changed the name of Liberty Hangout to Monarchy Hangout, and was promoting making Donald Trump an actual, for real life king of the United States. So anyway, I want to talk about her for a bit. And because she is wait, hang on, let me put this down here. Because she is interviewing in this clip, she's interviewing Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, so let me just turn on my thing over here, and I think if I set this up in such a way so that, you know, if I make this small, right, put it like way down here. Oh wait, wrong one. If I make that small and put it like way down there, and then like if I put my drawing like this, then maybe I can get away with like showing this, right? Yeah, okay. Because then hopefully the YouTube algorithm will not, you know, will not instantly kick me or whatever, because, you know, this is obviously fair use. So I don't want to be hearing no copyright strikes or any bullshit like that, YouTube. But I wanted to play this for you guys because it's sort of like this example of this video. In fact, you know what? Let me just I'll put the here. Hang on a second. Let me just put the address here in the chat if you guys also want to follow along at home later. It's kind of like the blind following the blind, you know. And one thing I want to bring to attention as we watch this is the idea that these two people, what they seem, you know, I think they're sincere in what they believe, you know. A lot of people on the left will say, okay, these guys are just grifters. You know what I mean? Like Rush Limbaugh was just a grifter. You know, he obviously didn't really give a fuck what he was saying. You know, Alex Jones, I think, is just a grifter as well. Although I think he believes some of the shit. But I think also he's very well aware that the majority of his audience are morons. Right? And he's, you know, taking advantage of them to make money off of their stupidity. I don't think that Caitlin Bennett is a non-believer. I think she believes the shit she's saying. I think she's not intelligent enough to understand the things she's saying. And I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is also a true believer, that she actually believes all of this stuff. Right? She believed, like, so when she'll say, like, you know, conspiracy theories, like there's video of her going out talking to David Hogg and stuff like that and calling him a fucking puppet of the Illuminati or whatever. I think she's a true believer. I think she actually believes it. I think that she has conviction, and that, you know, I mean, it's a direct correlation with their intelligence. Right. Anyway, but I do want to, yeah, so let's go ahead and watch this, and I'll make some comments on it as we go along. That way I can prove to YouTube that, hey, you know, this is fair use, YouTube, so don't give me any shit. All right, let's get going here.
If you have any advice to Christians, conservatives, Trump supporters to speak up, what would you say to them?
I would say that we are possibly living in the last days of having free speech. And if anyone values that, and if you're a Christian who has been saved by my Savior, their Savior, your Savior, Jesus Christ, if you believe in God, you better stop being complacent and you better stop being quiet. We are given this grace, and we're not meant to keep it.
Okay, right off the bat, lots of, I mean, so just look at the look on this woman's face, right? She does seem like she is a true believer. She does actually believe that, you know, that Republicans and conservatives are being, you know, oppressed, right? They're being forced to be quiet. So what is she referring to there? You know, this whole idea of cancel culture, that's the big push from conservatives right now. Cancel culture. It's so bad. It's so bad. Why are they focusing on cancel culture so much? Why are they claiming, you know, they're trying to claim that they're being silenced? All these other things, right? I think that is a direct result of the events of January 6th, the insurrection. Why do I say that? Okay, well, first off, you got to remember that none of these people ever have their own views, okay? These are talking points that are being fed to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, she's not, you know, she didn't come up with this shit on her own. Okay, you ever notice that? You ever notice how Ben Shapiro will say something, and then later on that day you'll hear it from Fox News, and you'll hear it from, you know, an elected official, and then it'll be like in a fucking an op-ed in like the Wall Street Journal, something like that, and they all line up, they'll all say the exact same view, the exact same talking point. You know, everybody from, you know, a conservative congressman all the way down to like an op-ed in a newspaper or some shit like that, they will all echo the exact same talking points for the day. Like, and it's kind of uncanny how conservatives and Republicans and shit are just, they remain on message constantly. You know what I mean? Like, they're very, very good with remaining on message like that. And this is what she's talking about when she goes, okay, you know, it's cancel culture, right? They're trying to twist around, you know, they're trying to take the fact that their supporters attempted to violently overthrow the United States government, and they're trying to twist that around into a free speech issue, you know. And you're already hearing it, whether they're, you know, whether they're blaming it on Antifa or whatever like that. But it all comes down to, oh, I'm conservative, so that, you know, the mainstream media is not allowing me to speak, right? You know, Donald Trump, for example, getting kicked off of Twitter or shit like that. You know, they're saying conservatives are being removed from social networking platforms, and you know, and you need to stand up, and yeah, it's freedom of speech, blah 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 blah. And that has nothing to fucking do with freedom of speech. You know, it's not infringing on your freedom of speech when a platform, a private company, kicks you off of their product. That's what Twitter is. Twitter's a product. You know what I mean? Twitter is not you know, not a public forum where anybody is allowed to get up and just say whatever the fuck they want. No, Twitter's a product. You know, when you sign up for Twitter, you have those terms of service, and you have to follow those. And if you don't follow those terms, you know, those terms of service basically say we can kick you for any reason we want. That's what all the terms of services say. That's what the YouTube terms of service says. That's what Facebook's terms and conditions. You know what I mean? The terms of service. That's what they all say. You know, these are the reasons why we'll kick you. They always say, they say the same things. We'll kick you for these reasons, X, Y, Z, if you're threatening people, if you're, like, you know, bullying, blah, 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 or any other reason we deem you know, necessary. So basically, they could just call you tomorrow and be like, yeah, you're banned from, you know, you're banned from Facebook. Get the fuck out of here. And there's nothing you can do about it, because that's what it says. That's what you accept, you know. That's what it means to when a private entity runs their, you know, their social networking product, right? So, you know, freedom of speech is the government doing that to you. If the government came to you and said, hey, if you say these things, we're going to fine you, we're going to throw you in prison, that's freedom of speech right there. It's like, no, the government is not allowed to tell you that you can't say these things. Like, Facebook does not have the capability to censor you, right? Facebook has the capability to censor Facebook, right? That's it. You have the ability to go to any other platform out there or create your own and still say your opinion. Now, it's like, you know, some people say there's a slippery slope and all that shit and blah, 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 and one day it'll happen to the leftist voices, whatever. It already happens to leftist voices. They already kick, you know, people with, you know, with leftist voices off of these platforms as well. That already fucking happens. So it's like, you know, I don't want to hear any shit. So anyway, just thought I would mention that. Let's keep going here. And also, yeah, you notice how she immediately brought religion into it. You know, if you're a Christian, now what about the rest of the fucking people? You know, like, she immediately brings religion into it, right? And that really fits in with the conservative worldview, the idea that only these certain types of people are really Americans. You know what I mean? Only Christians are Americans. And really, when it comes down to it, Christian is kind of a code word for white. It really is. Right? You know, because they always, you know, that it's the same language. If you look at the language that Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying right here, right? Compare it to what segregationists were saying in the 1950s. It's the exact same language. It's the exact same rhetoric. You know, instead of saying white people have to stand up for their freedom of speech, she's saying Christians have to stand up for their freedom of speech. Instead of saying white people are being harassed and oppressed and all that shit, she's saying Christians are being harassed and oppressed. And it's basically because those terms are interchangeable in Marjorie Taylor Greene's worldview. If you're not a Christian, you're not a real American, according to her. You know, and probably Caitlin Bennett here except Caitlin Bennett has like kind of already torn her mask off, and has already like exposed herself as a disgusting racist in the past. We could do one day. Maybe we'll do a stream about Liberty Hangout and all the neo-Nazi shit they dabbled in the past. I feel bad about giving them a view for this, but I think it's worth it to make fun of them. Let's continue.
Covered. We're not meant to keep a lid on our light. We're meant to expose it to the world, and we're supposed to be brave.
By the way, that's incorrect. That's another thing that she just said right there. I mean, I'm not really a Christian, but I do know a little bit about it, and what she just said, we're mean to expose our light to the world. That's not true. In the Bible specifically, it says you should, when you worship, it should be a private matter, and that the people who go out there and make a big public ordeal about how they worship and how they want everybody to see it, those people will not be getting into heaven. It's exactly what it says. It says you should worship, and you should worship. It should be between you and God, and the people out there who are making a spectacle of it because they want everybody else to know. That's why. Those are the people that shall be turned, the Lord shall turn his face away from them. I can't remember the exact quote, but it comes down to humility. You're supposed to be humble. You're not supposed to brag about your religion like Marjorie Taylor Greene obviously is. Let's continue.
We're here with Marjorie Taylor Greene. You need no introduction. You're awesome. You're a fighter. You're so strong. A lot of people like to say you're my mom.
So strong.
That's okay with
I'll
me.
take that. You're a very good, solid, conservative, gun-loving, Second Amendment supporting young lady. So that's
You heard it here. Marjorie is my mom. So, okay. Ever since you won your election back in Georgia, the media has just loved to attack you, and it seems as if because they don't have Trump to go after, you are their new target. How do you handle it so well?
well.
Nice fucking loaded question there. Why did people attack Donald Trump? Why? Was it just because he was conservative? Or was it because he repeatedly said really stupid things and did really illegal things? Which one of those? Right? People just didn't attack Trump because he was Trump and they hated him. He actually did shit in order to get people to, not like him. I mean, from the nanosecond even before he became president, just during his his run up, his campaign, even the very first day where he campaigned, where he basically blamed Mexico for sending over rapists and murderers and thieves, and I'm sure some of them are good people. I'm sure you guys remember that. Right? From the very first Donald Trump's entire campaign and subsequent term as president was all about oppressing people, taking things away from people, kicking people out of the country, throwing people in jail, violence towards people, knocking the shit out, knock the shit out of them. If you ever see him at those old rallies where he's telling people to beat up protesters and shit like that. And at no point was Donald Trump ever interested in bringing the country together at all. At no point was Donald Trump interested in helping people, right? He used the government for his own aims. For his own, self-enrichment, right? Every single thing the guy did was designed to personally benefit himself and not us. Okay? That's why people didn't like Donald Trump. And the reason why people don't like Marjorie Taylor Greene is because she believes in ridiculous, wonky, untrue bullshit that is, detrimental to the country, fucking Jewish space lasers, for example, the NWO, video of her going and Sandy Hook, she thinks what does that mean? She thinks Sandy Hook is fake, right? Well, now this is a person that, why would she say Sandy Hook is fake? Because obviously it's gun control. Gun control is, obviously it was a false flag put up by the NWO in order to like get support for gun control so they could take away your guns and all that shit. Well, now she's a fucking congressperson, that someone who believes in all of that ridiculous shit is actually now making the laws. Is she like going through people's desks afterwards, like after Congress gets out of session, like trying to find evidence of like the fucking like Illuminati or some shit like that? I mean, seriously, she must realize by now that she's part of the fucking establishment, that all of that shit she believed was complete bullshit, right? She must understand by now, it's like, hey, oh, Nancy Pelosi isn't a fucking like, reptilian shape changer from outer space, right? She must really know, it's like, hey, there isn't a cabal of Jewish overlords fucking commanding everything, but I don't know. I mean, has she ever apologized for any of that shit? I don't know. She claims she doesn't believe it, but she only made those claims when it became a big deal. When the public started when there was a public backlash against her and videos of her fucking like saying all this ridiculous shit. And then she didn't even really apologize. She gave one of those half-assed Republican apologies where it's like, I'm sorry you got offended type apologies. Fuck this woman. Anyway, that's why people don't like you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay? If you want to help, so there's a video, I should have saved this. There's a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene actually making a speech in front of the House, talking about how, the economy's shitty because of lockdowns and how people are out of work, and all of this stuff, and people are beginning, there's homeless, blah, blah, blah. And she talked about these economic problems, right, because of COVID-19 lockdowns, right? And she's correct. Yes, there are all these economic problems because of COVID-19 lockdowns. Then she turns around and votes against the stimulus. It's like, well, fuck, lady, what do you want? You are in a position of power. Marjorie Taylor Greene right now is in a position of power. She can actually make a difference. She can do something to help all those people that right now are on unemployment, have lost their jobs, are about to lose their homes, or their loved ones are like fucking sick or dying. She can do something to help those people. She can get those people aid. She can try to pass a law to take some of that burden off of them. She could raise their minimum wage, right? She's not doing any of that shit. She's not doing any of that at all. She's voting against all of that stuff, right? She fucking voted against the minimum wage increase. She voted against the current, stimulus bill. Well, fuck you, bitch. If you want to fucking help people, vote for the shit that's going to help them. All right? I'm serious. What the fuck is this, man? So this is why people don't like Republicans. This is why, Marjorie Taylor Greene, people fucking despise your ass, okay? Because you're taking the power you have and you're squandering it because you're a goddamn moron. Let's go on. Sorry, getting off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Well, the way I handle it is I didn't run for the media. I ran for the people. And my saying during my campaign, and I continue to say it, is people over politicians. As a matter of fact, that's so important to me. We have that on my wall in my office in Washington, D.C., and I can't wait for Nancy Pelosi to stop running our Capitol like it's some kind of military state and we get that border wall taken down. I can't wait for the taxpayers and my constituents to come in and see me in my office so they can see how much they mean to me.
So, what she's talking about there, by the way, is the federal troops, National Guard and all, right, who are currently in Washington, D.C. And they've been there since the 21st, and they were there over the 6th because, March 6th was the new date predicted by QAnon to where Donald Trump was going to retake power, and the storm was going to come, which would result in the military taking over the country and a military junta arresting and executing Democrats. And so that's why the National Guard is still there, and there's a big fence around the Capitol building, and, thousands of troops are there defending our lawmakers is because of that. So when she says, yeah, when Nancy Pelosi stops running, the Capitol like a military state, she's not mentioning the reason why it's being done is because of Republicans, because of conservatives, because of people like her is the reason why those troops are there. Right? She conveniently didn't mention that fact, right? Probably because she thinks it was all Antifa that caused it. That belief now is like, you remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did a live stream. We actually did a live stream about that, about how all the Republicans were trying to blame Antifa for the, January 6th riot, insurrection, right? It wasn't even a riot. It was a fucking, like, attempted fucking coup d'etat, right? And how they were, like, blaming Antifa, and they thought, all the Twitter comments and shit that we went over. Remember that? That belief has firmly taken root. And now all of the fucking, that's basically all the Republican QAnon true believers like Marjorie Taylor Greene all think that's a fact now, in defiance of everything that's logical, in defiance of the actual words of the rioters and insurrectionists who were there and who are claiming, I am not Antifa, they still believe it. It's firmly taken root into the, into the conservative, conspiracy theory mythology, right? So, yeah, now it's like, because, so obviously all those troops must be there to oppress people and not to defend them from the conservatives, because the conservatives didn't actually cause that fucking, insurrection, because it was all Antifa. It was all just a pre-planned attack to make Republicans look bad. That's what she's referring to right there. Does Marjorie Taylor Greene actually believe that? Well, I don't know. She seems kind of sincere to me. Right? I don't think she's grifting. I don't think she's lying. I think she actually believes it when she says these things, So at least she's not a liar, right? 1911, how you doing? Yes, there is a border wall around the White House. From what I understand, there's a large fence around the White House and troops and stuff, and around the Capitol as well. Yes, there is. And the difference is that illegal aliens are not trying to break in to the Capitol building and steal their jobs. Right? Illegal immigrants, illegal aliens are not trying to break into the Capitol and get jobs waiting tables and in meatpacking factories and stuff like that. Instead, actual, real, violent insurrectionists, militias and shit, are planning and chatting and stuff about going in and murdering Democrats. Specifically murdering Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all that stuff. And that's why the National Guard is remaining in Washington for the time being. That was just in the news the other day. They've requested that the FBI released, the threat is high, and they've requested that they stay there for at least another 2 months. So that's what's going on there. Anyway, let's continue. All right.
Media, we know exactly who they are. We saw it with President Trump over the past 4 years. Most of the mainstream media is Democrats. They support Democrats. They want these progressive policies in place, and they use their powerful platform to push these policies. And so when someone who's conservative like...
Yeah, so I never really bought that argument that most of the mainstream media is Democrats, because that's not necessarily true. It is true that there are a very large number of, you would say, liberal-leaning reporters. Yeah, you could say that. People like Sarah Jung from, Rolling Stone or something like that, That's true. But the mainstream media is filled with Democrats. Well, what she's really saying there is the mainstream media is filled with liberals, The mainstream media has a liberal bias, That's what she's really saying, and that's been a trope that goes back decades. Rush Limbaugh used to say shit like that all the time. In fact, I think he was the one that kind of got the ball rolling on that idea. The idea that the mainstream media has is biased towards liberals and you can't believe them and blah 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 blah. Right. See, this kind of ignores the fact that the largest, even still today, the largest news network in the world, in the country and the world, is Fox News. Right. So you can't be the largest network with the highest the highest ratings, right, and not be considered mainstream. I don't see how that works. How can you be number one and not be mainstream? The most people watch you. That means, they have the highest number of viewers, the highest ratings. That means more people watch them than watch CNN, than watch MSNBC, than watch, the other local network news, stuff like that, by far. And some of them, if you've ever actually looked at the raw numbers, Sean Hannity, for example, will get more viewers than, like, all of his competition that's on at the same time combined. It's kind of obscene how many people watch Fox News, even now, when a whole bunch of, like, conservatives have jumped ship and they've all gone to, One American Network or Newsmax or something like that, right? Even after that, they're still the highest rated by far. So how can you say that they're not the mainstream media if they're getting, 3 times the number of views as everybody else? It doesn't make any sense. So I never understood that shit, to begin with. But basically, yeah, this idea that, the mainstream media is all Democrats. That's not true. That's not true at all. What the mainstream media is corporatist, because they're corporations and they are interested in things that benefit themselves, as that's what they are, So if the mainstream media was actually, liberal, like she said, every time there's a war, they would be against it, right? They would be for things like raising the minimum wage. They're not, right? They would be, they would be for things like, what they are? They're very pro social issues. You'll find the mainstream media and stuff. They're very happy to talk about things like sexism and Me Too and racism, shit like that. But not too much. Not too much. They'll still routinely throw people under the bus like Black Lives Matter. They'll always take the side of the police when it comes to a police shooting of an unarmed black person, whatever. They're always too happy to do that shit, But you do see some sometimes pro reporting on social issues, but not when it comes to things like tax policy. Not when it comes to things like war. They're all very pro-military. So no, they're not liberal in the slightest. If anything, the mainstream media is pro-corporatist. So, all right, I know we're only 2 minutes into this. I'll stop fucking interrupting every 5 seconds here.
Like me, and I truly love America, and my policies are America first, just like President Trump, and I support him completely.
Yeah, America First, by the way, was the name of a fascist group. That's where that name came from, America First. It was a fascist group in the 1930s. So, pretty sure that, Marjorie Taylor Greene is unaware about that. Pretty sure Donald Trump was aware of that. If Donald Trump wasn't, then his staff were. Stephen Miller, probably was very aware of that, and that's not an accident. That's actually true. You can look that up anyway.
And I can't wait for him to speak tomorrow. They want to tear me down and smear me and create a narrative that they can sell to the public. And how I handle it is that's not who I am. And all of my family and friends are constantly appalled at their attacks, and so are my constituents. And so here's the great news. You don't worry about bullies. You don't let them bully you, and you don't worry about their lies, and you keep putting one foot in front of the other and doing the right thing, because it's not about the media in this country, it's about the people.
Yeah, So you've all, I'm sure you're all aware of the smears supposedly she's talking about here. What is how is playing a video of you harassing a child who was the victim of a mass shooting, how is that a smear? You know, how is posting your Facebook posts where you you know, believe that wildfires in California were started by space-based lasers? How is that a smear? You know, smearing is when you say something about someone that isn't true, or where you characterize something they did in a negative way. You know what I mean? That's a smear, right? For example, taking a politician who was divorced from their you know, husband or wife, right? And then claiming that the reason why they were divorced was because of infidelity, when you have no evidence of that. That's a smear. You know what I mean? What was the name of that the Democrat House representative who you know, I can't remember her name, and like naked pictures of her got leaked by an ex-boyfriend. Right? You know what I'm talking about? It was in the news about 3 months ago or so. There was a House member who damn, what the fuck is her name? I forgot her name, but you know, it was in the news a few months ago. This one lady who you know, ran for the House and had an affair with a staffer before she got elected, and then somebody like an old boyfriend of her leaked naked pictures of her that had nothing to do with any of it, and she like was forced to resign in shame. You know what I'm talking about? Something Taylor. I can't remember her name. That's a fucking smear. When you're like posting revenge porn on someone, right? Claiming that, you know, that this person was a slut or whatever, right? When it's like, when they didn't even do anything fucking illegal, and like the naked pictures were not even of her with the staffer, right? That's a fucking smear, right? Like just posting like something that someone posted on their Facebook, or an interview they surprise fucking asshole gotcha interview they tried to do with us, you know, with somebody. That's not a fucking smear, right? Posting like, when you post your own shit, when you post something that somebody said or wrote in a on social media without any accompanying commentary on it, you know, if you're just posting their stuff for people to see it, it's not a smear. That's, nobody fucking smeared Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, but that's how she's framing it. Oh, they're smearing me as a conspiracy theorist, you know, just because I said a cabal of Jewish overlords used California as, you know, target practice for their fucking like orbital fucking space cannon. Just because I said these things, just because I claimed that you know, the Jews run the fucking world, you know, and you know, Jesus Christ is like gonna come back and you know, save us all from the new world order and finally fucking, you know, outlaw abortion or whatever. Like, just because I said this, they're smearing me as some kind of conspiracy theorist. It's like, bitch, you fucking said you posted fucking conspiracy theories. It's not a fucking smear to post the same shit that you posted. So anyway, moving on.
My story is kind of similar to yours, because right now I get chased out of college campuses. They don't want me in these public spaces. They chased you and voted you out of your committee. And I know in your press statements you say, well, now I have more time to focus on the people back in Georgia. Are you still of that mindset?
Yeah, Caitlin Bennett gets chased off of college campuses because she's a white supremacist. Right? And she's a white supremacist, and she harasses people. She goes up to people on college campuses and shoves a microphone in their face, you know. And it's like, the college has a right to tell her to fuck off. Is she a student there? No. Get the fuck out. Right? Can you name any other place where you can go just, you know, with your cameras that's like, if you go to any other, like, you know, business or institution with your cameras and just start fucking bothering people, causing a ruckus, you know, insulting people, shit like that, right? Are they gonna like allow you to hang around there? It's like, no. I mean, I'm sure if she goes to the beach, a public place, or a park, or on the streets, nobody tells her to get lost, you know, because those are public places. You know, colleges are not public places. So Even if you go to a public college like a UC or something like that, that's still not a public place, you know. You can't just go there and fucking do whatever the fuck you want. You have to have, you know, a reason to be on the campus, and they can eject you for any reason that they fucking want. So that's bullshit. It's another little bit of, you know, oh, I'm conservative and I'm being oppressed, blah blah blah, because I say horrible fucking things. You know, they're trying to cancel me because I'm a white supremacist bigot piece of shit. And, you know, it's my First Amendment right to be an asshole and force YouTube and Twitter to fucking take my content. It's bullshit. Get the fuck out of here. It's not true at all. Anyway, I don't want to, you know, and I know I'm interrupting this. We're only at 3 minutes in, but it's like, it's sort of like, you know, I don't want to let any of that, I don't want any of that to, like, slip through. You know what I'm saying? Anyway.
Are you regretting that you aren't on that committee at all? Or are you still happy with who you are and where you're going?
Oh, listen, that was a great big gift from the Democrats and 11 of my very weak Republican colleagues. It was 10 that voted again for impeachment on Trump. It was 11 that voted to kick me off. And most of those people have been censured in their own districts and states. So I think they're hearing from people exactly the message they need to hear. No, being removed from committees right now was the best thing that could have happened to me, because the Democrats are running Congress. They do not care about the Republicans' voices, Republicans' ideas, Republican amendments.
Yeah, so what is she referring to? She's referring to the fact that she got kicked off of her committees there. She was on the Education Committee and some other one. So what does that mean for her? That means that she doesn't have to do any work. All right. So you can't basically put forward any, according to the rules of the Senate, you know, of the House and the Senate, you can't put forward any legislation if you're not on a committee, right? They kicked her off the committees, right? So she can't put forward any legislation. So all she really has to do now is just show up and vote when she feels like it. She doesn't even have to show up and vote if she doesn't want to if she doesn't feel like it. So, you know, that's what's going on there. So now basically they kicked her off so she doesn't have to actually put any work. She doesn't have to do any work. And that's what she's happy about. Why do I say this? Why do I say that she's, you know, because there was a story that came out, right, that on the first day, Marjorie Taylor Greene, on the first day of the session, she was going to introduce articles to impeach Joe Biden. She was going to do that. And then she didn't do it. And it's like, why didn't she do it? She said because she didn't understand how much work was involved. Right? She wasn't prepared for the amount of work involved. Now, why would somebody, you know, now I believe her. I believe her. I think that when she, like, took over, you know, when she got elected, right, and went to the Senate, you know, went to the House, right, I believe that she had no idea what a House rep actually does, right? I think that she had no clue how laws are actually made, right? She didn't know what they actually do. She didn't know what it took to, like, you know, that, you know, I think she just thought you just sort of got up and, like, voted on shit. And that was it. I don't think she actually understood that, no, this is a very, you know, a wide sort of process that takes a lot of work and can take a very long time. And, you know, shit just doesn't happen overnight. And I think that she just thought that she could just show up and be like, you know, where's the articles of impeachment button on my laptop? Right? And that's what tells, you know, and it's a very candid response from somebody because, you know, she doesn't know better. Because this woman does not have the intellectual capacity to be in our government. You know, she's a moron. She's a moron, all right? I mean, this is a person who thinks that, you know, that a cabal of Jewish bankers lit California on fire, for crying out loud. All right? With a fucking orbiting fucking laser cannon. I mean, for fuck's sake, this is what we're dealing with. Okay, so my God. All right, you know what? Enough of this shit. I'm done with. I'm done. I can't go on any further. They talk about more bullshit, and it's just cringeworthy. But it's just sort of like, I wanted to kind of poke a little bit of fun at that because it infuriates. Literally everything out of that, of both of those people, those two women, everything out of their mouths, like, just makes, it's like, oh my fucking God, it makes my blood boil. It makes my blood boil because there's people that see that and they think that these two people are like intelligent and doing the right thing and have their pulse on the fucking, like, their thumb on the pulse of America, and that they care about you. And it's so blatantly fucking obvious that they don't. Like, how can anybody watch what we just watched and actually think that, this woman's trying to help me? I don't understand. I mean, I don't know. Maybe conservatives just don't believe that the role of, of the House of Representatives is to help people. Maybe they don't believe that. And maybe they believe that the government should not be in the job of helping people, and I don't know, they should be helping corporations or some shit. I guess that's probably it. Oy oy oy. Jesus Christ. Let's move on here. So the main thing I wanted to talk about, I have a bunch of other shit relating to these guys, right? But the reason that my stream is called Republicans Are Cheats and Always Have Been, right? Because I want to get into the big gist of since we're already an hour in, and I want to end this at around 9:30. So I want to get into the main event for tonight, and it's about essentially using institutional power for your own gain, right? So this last election, I started to kind of touch on this a little bit earlier today in the first stream that before I lost my internet access. But this is it. This last election in 2020, I think really was a wake-up call to the Republican Party, right? So they were running everything, during the Trump years. They had, pretty much the entire show. They had the Senate, the presidency, the majority of the Supreme Court, and were able to put more than 250, 250 judges in the fucking, judicial branch, right? Federal judges. They were able to ram through that many. They have 3 picks on the Supreme Court, right? They have the majority of governors, the majority of state houses, the majority of state senates. So they're pretty much running the show. And they kind of did everything in their power in 2020 to steal the election. They kind of did. They did everything they could to to use that institutional power to tip the thumb, put the thumb on the scales. Everything from voter suppression, to screwing with the post office, to limiting, for example, the number of drop-off boxes, kicking people off of voter rolls, right? To everything from that to, Donald Trump going to various governors. He went to the governor of Michigan and also called up the governor of Georgia, asking them to procure votes for him, asking them to do things like delay the certification of the, election, stuff like that, right? Donald Trump is actually being criminally investigated in Georgia for this because that breaks Georgia election law. You're not allowed to, if you're an elected official, try to solicit favors in order to sway the election. That's against the law. Hopefully his ass will go to jail for that, but not likely. They went through all of this stuff up to and including, getting a mob of insane people to break into the Capitol and steal the election after all the shit didn't work. None of that worked. It all failed. Right? And I think it really has scared the shit out of the Republican establishment, because they kind of understand that this is, even with all of that power at their disposal, they still didn't win, So the response to that, because, like, the response to that, instead of trying to appeal to people, trying to understand why they lost, trying to understand why Joe Biden got 8 million more votes, or was it 7 million or 8 million more votes than Donald Trump did, right? And why they lost places like Georgia, places that were conservative strongholds, why those went blue this time around. Instead of doing trying to understand, like, what are we doing wrong? Why are people not voting for us? They instead have started to introduce lots of legislation in various states around the country in order to suppress voting even harder. So that's what the Republicans are doing. That's their answer to losing the election, is to try to make more people unable to vote. We're seeing it. So here's the thing, right? Because they had an opportunity. They had an opportunity in 2016, and they have another opportunity now in order to turn things around for them, right? So they've known for a long time, the Republicans, that demographic shifts are going to result in less of their core base. Their core base being a lower proportion of the electorate, right? That is uneducated white males. College, white males without a college education is basically the core demographic of the Republican Party, right? And they've known for a while now. They've known since, 2012 that as a proportion of the electorate is shrinking. Now, that doesn't mean that white men or white people are disappearing from the country. The opposite is happening. The opposite is actually happening. There are more white people in the country now than there were in 2012. It's just that there are smaller number of the electorate. So, if you ever hear of, like, white supremacists and shit talking about white genocide and all that, that's all complete bullshit, okay? That makes it sound like white people are being dragged off into cattle cars and massacred, which is bullshit. But what's happening is that white people are not having, their birth rate is lower than, for example, Latinos, right? Latinos have a higher birth rate. Why is that? Because white people have more money, right? That's what it is. And the more money you have, right, the less children you have. And women who have more money and who are higher educated, like, have more education, tend to have children less in life, tend to have less children, and they tend to have them later in life. So instead of having 3 children by the age of 25, they'll have, 1 or 2 children by the age of 35. And that's what happens. And that's, generally that's a pattern that, as economic prosperity goes up for a certain population, that's what happens with the birth rate. And, especially when it comes to things like women getting an education, the more education a woman has, the less children she has, and the later on in life she has them. And that's just how it works. And it's because people don't, have 17 kids when they have careers. That's why, if you have a career, if you have a job, if you have, like, responsibilities and your life isn't all just about pumping out kids. It's not like it was back in the 1850s when you had to have 16 kids just to get through because, 15 of them were going to die next winter. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, when immigrants come to the country, they tend to have a higher birth rate. But then as they acclimate and, integrate into our society, that birth rate goes down. So if you look at second generation immigrants, for example, from Latino immigrants, second generation Latino immigrants, they have birth rates that are comparable to white people. right? Why? Because they've integrated with society. They've gotten, the same kind of education and higher paying jobs, although usually they don't make as much as white people. That's just how it works. So what we're seeing is an increase in the population, in the electorate of, non-white people, most of them Latino, right? We're seeing a higher increase in Latino voters. And instead of trying to appeal to these people, because that's where it's going, the Republican Party has turned against them, and they did try to appeal to them a little bit. In 2012, for example, that's why, Mitt Romney, for example, tried to appeal to, the Latin voters, right? Latino voters. And, Mitt Romney, if you don't know, actually lived in Mexico. So he speaks fluent Spanish, right? Although he's not Mexican. Apparently, there's a very large population of Mormons in Mexico. I didn't know that, but that's true. There's like Mormons. There's like a big Mormon community in Mexico, and his father and his father lived in Mexico for a time, although he was born in the United States, right? And Mitt Romney speaks fluent Spanish, and I remember watching, for example, during the 2012 election, he went on Telemundo, and he tried to appeal to Latino voters. And what Mitt Romney did is that he went on, he had this interview, and he had this ridiculous spray tan, this absolutely fucking ridiculous spray tan. It was, let me see if I can find it. It was the fun. It was so like, I don't know, obviously fake. So this is it right here. Okay, let's just turn on my monitor here. Let's make this bigger. All right. See that? See this? See this right here? Right? This one. Mitt Romney goes on TV with this ridiculous dipped in orange paint shit on his face, which is funny because that's that was Donald Trump's look right there, the fucking orange baboon or whatever. It's funny how 4 years later the Republicans vote in another guy with a fucking dumbass spray tan. But anyway, Mitt Romney went on TV on Telemundo with this tan, speaking Spanish to Latinos. Right? It was the seriously obvious, the most obvious, like, pandering horse shit that anyone had ever seen. And he got a lot of shit for that. It was embarrassing, That's how they fucking, like, tried to, like, appeal to Latino voters, right? It was sad. Right? Jesus fucking Christ. So, anyway. So they tried to, so they basically doubled down when 2016 came back, right? And when 2016 came around, instead of realizing, hey, we need to, if we want to stay, relevant, we need to appeal to the people who are voting, that is Latino voters. Republican Party decided to double down on the racism and go with Donald Trump. And if you remember, Donald Trump's very first campaign event was him blaming Mexico for sending over rapists and thieves and murderers, and I'm sure some of them are good people. I'm sure you remember that. His signature policy was just build a wall across the southern border. So they did the opposite of trying to appeal to Latino voters, right? They doubled down on the racism. They doubled down on the white supremacism, right? And that's where they're at. And now they're kind of realizing, well, shit, now we're fucked. We're fucked because it didn't work, right? It didn't work, and if anything, now the proportion of white voters is even lower, And in 2024, it's going to be lower even still. And eventually, it's not going to be until around 2060 or so where white people will no longer be a majority in the country. They're still very much the majority. There's still something around like 72% of all the people in the country are white. So they're the majority, but it's kind of going down. It's going down because the population is increasing, and the population of non-white people is increasing more than the population of white people. And that's just how it is, right? So instead of going, hey, we need to adapt and survive, they've decided to just try to make voting harder for people who are not white. One of the things that's going on, right? So there's a bill in Iowa right now, which is aiming to reduce early voting. Oh, I'm like drawing off of the screen. Let me pull it up here. I'm like drawing way down here. It's aiming to reduce early voting in Iowa by 9 days, right? It's going to limit drop-off boxes for absentee ballots to 1 per county, right? And it will block election officials from sending out absentee ballot requests to voters. So you can get one, but you have to request it. They can't just send it to you, right? Which is bullshit, because why would they? What's the matter if they just send you an absentee ballot? Why does that matter? You're either going to use it or you're going to go vote in person. So, but it's because it makes it convenient for people. Because if people have a ballot just sent to them, they're more likely to use it and actually vote, rather than because if the day comes, they might not be able to get it off of work, or they might have shit to do, or they might be out of town, whatever, and they might end up not voting. So it's like, that's why. They want people to go through that extra step of actually having to request it, because they know that some people will end up not voting if they have, in that case, which is bullshit, right? Dropping off, limiting the drop boxes to 1 per county is something that happened in Texas this last election, and some of the counties in Texas are gigantic. We're talking thousands of square miles in Texas. Like it'll be like something like 15,000 square miles or some shit like that. Texas is gigantic. The state is like fucking massive. It takes like fucking 3 days to drive across Texas. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Texas. It's fucking huge, right? So imagine you're in one of those counties. It's got like it's like 1,200 square miles or whatever. That's this county, and there's 1 drop-off box. Now imagine you don't have a car. How the fuck are you gonna get to it? You're just gonna end up not voting. That's what's gonna happen. That's what they're banking on. The same shit is true in Iowa. Lots of rural counties out there where people if you have to fucking drive 20 miles to go vote, people just aren't gonna fucking do it. So that's what it's all about. Same shit's happening in Florida. There is legislation now in Florida to prevent officials from automatically sending a vote by mail ballot to people who voted before, which is the thing about it, there's no good reason. Why are they not allowed to just automatically send you a ballot? What's the point? If you believe that the point of laws is to help and protect people, how are people being protected or helped by not having, vote by mail ballots automatically sent to them? How does that protect anybody? You can't misuse the ballot, right? You have to sign it, right? And the thing about, voter fraud is that it's very, very easy to catch, right? They always fucking catch voter fraud. That's how they know that voter fraud is not a problem. That's sort of, the idea of somebody filling out a ballot, incorrectly, turning it in and having it get counted. That's extremely easy to track down, and that's how they know that this shit doesn't happen. All right. I mean, the thing is that you do hear about it happening, and it just so happens that when it does happen, it turns out to be fucking Republicans. All right. Here's a story right here. This came up. This is actually from 2016. North Carolina Republican operative charged in an election fraud scheme. This is some funny shit. I will put the link to this down in the bottom here in case you want to, follow up here, in case you think I'm spreading fake news or something like that. But the long and the short of that story is there's about a guy named Leslie McCary Dowless. And he was running a team of voting operatives for the Republican Party there in Iowa and or North Carolina, sorry. And they were doing things like illegally collecting, and filling out absentee ballots and turning them in. And it's like, the thing is, they got caught. They got caught because it's very easy to investigate and find out if the ballots you're turning in, it gets flagged really easily. It's like, there's really no way, like the conspiracy theory that millions upon millions of people were turning in fake ballots. There's no truth to that whatsoever. Every bit of evidence we have points to the fact that that's bullshit. And when people try to do that, they get caught instantly. All right. Here's another one of a dead person voting. This was actually in 2020. And this is, wait, can you actually see that? Or is it just like cut off? Let me just, oh wow, that actually is cut off, huh? Let me see, can I make that smaller, maybe? Because you can't even see the whole thing. There we go. Officials finally found a case of a dead person voting, accusing a Republican of pretending to be his dead mom to vote for Trump. That's some more funny shit, just more leopards ate my face kind of stuff going on there. Let me turn that off. I will also put that down in the chat for you guys to go through. But, just a couple examples. Just do a Google out there for cases of voter fraud. And it just so happens that most of the people who they catch who actually do engage in voter fraud tend to be Republicans. It's, I don't know, maybe there's a little bit of projection going on there. Maybe that's why they like to claim voter fraud is such a problem, because they know they're fucking doing it themselves. Just throwing that out there. Anyway, so we were talking about voter suppression, right? The biggest one so far, I gotta take a break, my hand hurts, sorry. And I need some water, because I'm like blabbing and shit, so hang on a second. So the biggest story, of course, is in Georgia. There is 2 bills going in Georgia, one in the Senate, and this is to remove no excuse absentee voting by mail. So what does that mean? Well, no excuse absentee voting means basically you can get an absentee ballot for any reason, just because you want one. So if you just don't feel like going down and waiting in line and voting, you just want to vote by mail, then, that's what that means, right? But they want to take that out, so you actually have to have a reason. So what basically it'll be like, oh, you have to tell them you're either going to be out of town, or that you're, what was the reasons? You have to actually be out of town, or you have to be physically disabled, or you have to be over the age of 65. Basically, you have to have a reason to want to vote, by mail, which is like, why? How does that protect anybody? See, how does that help anyone? How does that protect anything? How does that prevent voter fraud? Why shouldn't you be allowed to just say, hey, I like voting by mail. I don't want to wait in line. Some people in Georgia, this last election, 2020, in some districts in Georgia were waiting for up to 12 hours to vote. Okay? Can you imagine that shit? 12 hours? You get there at 9 in the morning, and at 8:30 at night, your ass is still waiting. That's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Don't you think somebody would, want to just mail in their ballot if that was how the voting system was in Georgia? And it just so happens all those people who are waiting 12 hours to fucking vote just happen to be from black and brown communities. I don't know how that works out, Rich white people aren't waiting for fucking 12 hours to vote. Okay. One of the things that in that little interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene that we didn't get to because it was making my fucking brain hurt, she says, hey, she compares voting to waiting in line at the grocery store, saying, oh, if you have to vote, if you have to wait in line at the grocery store, then you have to wait in line to vote. When was the last time that you went to Vons, right, to get some groceries and waited 12 fucking hours in line, right, to like at the checkout line? What do you think would happen if Marjorie Taylor Greene went into a Vons and had to wait for 12 hours to buy, like, whatever the fuck it is she's buying? I don't know, right? Buying her fucking groceries. What do you think she would do? How fast do you think she would want to speak to the manager? Right? How fast do you think she would channel that inner Karen and just be like, I want to talk to your manager. I've been in this line already for 40 minutes. Fuck you, bitch. You have to wait for another fucking 12 hours. Anyway. Unfucking real. Right. They also want to, the same bill will also restrict the number of drop-off boxes, again, and reduce early voting days on the weekends, right? So what it is that it would remove Sunday voting, right? It would limit it to only one Sunday during the election season. And it just so happens that a lot of black churches in Georgia use Sundays to get their sort of get out the vote programs. There's a name for it, which I can't remember what it is, but it's a program where you go to church and then afterwards they encourage you to go vote, and they all like give each other rides and stuff out to go vote. And it's like, this law targets exactly voting on Sundays for some reason. It doesn't say Saturdays, it doesn't say Thursdays or Fridays, it says Sundays. Why is that? Because that's the day that all the black people in Georgia go to vote. It's like, it couldn't be more fucking obviously, blatantly in your face fucking racist if you tried. This is the institutional definition of racism here. It's literally using institutional power to, advance the fucking agenda of one group of people defined by their race over another. That's it's racist in every fucking way you define the word racist. Unbelievable. It would also make this same bill, this is the House bill in Georgia, right, that would eliminate Sunday voting. It would also make it a crime to give food or water to people who are waiting in line to go vote. So you're waiting in line, it's been fucking 12 hours, you have not had something to drink all day. If I go and get you a Diet Coke and a sandwich and come back, I get a ticket. It makes that a misdemeanor. I can get fined for bringing you water, bringing you food, because you're waiting in line to vote all fucking day. How does that help anybody? How does that protect anyone? These are how do you determine if a law is just or if it's unjust, right? I mean, what? It benefits the greatest amount of people. It protects people. How does this protect anybody? How does this prevent voter fraud? Not being able to bring somebody water when they're waiting in line all fucking day, because there's because they couldn't get a fucking they couldn't get an absentee ballot, and there's one drop box which is 50 miles away, so they can't get to it. So the only way they get to vote is to vote in person, and there's like one polling place in their entire fucking city. So 5 million people are waiting in line to fucking vote, and they can't even you can't even go buy the guy a fucking ice cream cone and shit, right? And give it to him. You can't even give him a fucking bottle of water or something so he doesn't die of fucking thirst while he's waiting in line all fucking day. How does that protect against voter fraud? It doesn't. It couldn't be more racist. It couldn't be more oppressive if you fucking tried. And this is what I want to hear. I want to hear Republicans defend this shit. If you're a Republican, if you believe in this stuff, if you actually do think that there was voter fraud, that, bus loads of illegal aliens were driving around and voting for fucking Hillary Clinton or whatever, or somehow, if somehow Joe Biden, like, fooled everybody and hacked the fucking system, using a German, like, servers or some shit, even though, like, I don't mean, if you actually believe that, and the ghost of, like, Hugo Chavez, like, came through and hacked our fucking election system, right? If you actually believe any of that shit, how would any of this defend against that? It doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's like there is no way to fucking defend it, Thankfully, these are all just bills which are, they've all been proposed, and it doesn't mean that any of these will get enacted, but some of them will. These are Republican controlled state houses in states with Republican governors, and even if they do get watered down or whatever, any restrictions on voting like this is going to result in basically voter suppression. And next time around, a lot of these states, there was actually pretty close, they lost this time, right? But some of these states, Pennsylvania and a few others, they only won them by very small margins, maybe a couple, tens of thousands of votes, which, in the grand scheme of things, when you have a state with like, 4 or 5 million people in it, 10,000 votes, 20,000 votes, even 100,000 votes is not a very large margin. You know what I mean? And it's like, like I really do think, for example, in Texas in 2020, I really do think that the voter suppression tactics in Texas made a big fucking deal. Made a very big dent, and we would have seen Texas be a lot more purple this time around if it wasn't for the voter suppression. I really do believe that, So, that's what they're going for, man. And it's like, this is the thing, it's not just now, right? It's kind of always been that way. That's why I named this, Republicans are cheats and they always have been, because this has been the MO of the Republican Party for decades, is to bend institutional power towards their own selfish gains. Right. When Republicans are in power, they have no compunction about using that power to enrich themselves, right? To keep themselves in power and to screw everybody else. And they'll do it blatantly in your face, and they're never held accountable for it. Ever. Right? Donald Trump, he lost the popular vote in 2016, right? And then, his fragile fucking ego couldn't handle the fact that that Hillary Clinton actually got 3 million more votes than him. Couldn't fucking handle it. So he starts a commission to look into voter fraud. Spending millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to start this commission to investigate voter fraud. Right, all of these ridiculous claims that, buses of illegal immigrants in California went around and voted for Hillary, and that's why she got 3 million more votes than me and all this other crap. And after a year, they had to conclude that there was no evidence of voter fraud, that all that was complete bullshit. After a year and wasting millions and millions of our taxpayer dollars that could have been going towards other things like, say, I don't know, disease prevention, right? That kind of thing, making sure the fucking national stockpile was full of protective equipment in case, I don't know, a pandemic broke out, right? Just to placate his fucking ego, they disbanded. His commission that he set up, disbanded, found that there was zero voter fraud. But was that enough? No. That's why all these laws are being proposed, because of the big lie. The big lie that the Democrats stole the election. That the Democrats are, all of this other stuff. So we have to put in these fucking restrictive voting, suppressive laws in order to safeguard our election from voter fraud. When there's zero actual fucking proof of voter fraud, it didn't happen then, it didn't happen now. They have no proof whatsoever of it. But it's like they tell the lie, and now they're passing laws using the lie they told as a justification. It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. It's fucking fascist, is what it is. But anyway, I don't know. But that's really not like, I don't know. It's just, it's not the first time it's happened, right? I mean, it's not even like, that's not even the only instance of it. I mean, there's other, even in this last election, for example, Donald Trump loses, right? And they pretty much did everything they could to try to, steal it, right? I mean, we already talked about him trying to, call the governors of various states, stuff like that. But not just that, it was also the Republican Party itself, had a very large hand in that. It wasn't just all Trump and Trump's team, For example, in Arizona, there was a group of Republican electors who tried to basically tried to submit phony election paperwork and steal the state's electoral votes for Donald Trump. That actually happened, right? That wasn't the only state that this happened in either. Here is the article I have for this from Arizona Central. I will put this down in the chat too, so you guys can check it out. Essentially, this group of electors here passed themselves off as the 11 electoral, electors from Arizona, and they tried to basically submit fake electoral votes, tried to steal it for Donald Trump, basically, summing up that article, right? And the same thing actually happened in fucking, happened in a couple of other states, happened in Michigan also. Fake Republican electors showed up to the governors, the legislature, try to deliver, fake electoral votes, right? And try to get them to sign on to it. And it's I don't know. And the thing is, in Arizona, right, those same fake 11 fake electors that tried to basically pull these shenanigans, then also drafted a letter explaining why they were doing it. We are trying to, deliver this state for Donald Trump. And half of the Republican legislature signed on to their letter, right? Half of them. So it's not, if you're going to sit here and you're going to say something like, oh, this is just a small number of crazies who are trying to bend the rules or whatever, right? And it's not the majority of Republicans. Half of the Republican legislature in Arizona signed on to that attempt, to get fake electoral votes. It's ridiculous. It's you have one side that just lies and cheats as a matter of course, and they get pissed when people call them out on it and try to claim that they're fucking oppressed. Oh, people are oppressing me. They don't want to, they're banning me from social media because of, because I'm conservative or whatever. It's no, bitch, it's because you tried to steal the fucking election. I don't know. That's why you're getting fucking kickback from this. People don't like that. When you try to steal elections, people tend to not react well to that sort of thing. Anyway. Oh my God. Moving on. Okay, so I have a couple of other examples because people might say, okay, well this election, yeah, it's because we're polarized now. The people might say, but you might hear this from people. We're polarized now, and the Republican Party has been pushed really far to the right, and it's because of Fox News and blah 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 and all this other shit. And but it's not all Republicans. They weren't all always like this. You know, there were times in this in the past where they had integrity, etc., etc. And I just want to reiterate that that is not true. This has always been a problem. You know, we have always had a problem with Republicans, especially Republicans, you know, Republican lawmakers, right? Republican representatives, Republican politicians. We've always had this problem where they've just always seemed to be more willing to bend the rules and even break them to commit illegal acts. They've always, you know, to attempt to use institutional power towards their own end. It seems to be like they're just very blatant and in your face over it, you know. And it's something that's been, it's like, it's been kind of like an epidemic with them for decades. Okay, so for example, in September 11th of 2019, right, in North Carolina, there was the you know, the Democrats, right, in the North Carolina state legislature were out at various events, you know, because it was September 11th, right, and they got a you know, there was a resolution that passed, and basically they said, okay, we're not going to have any business this day because, you know, there's events out here, people are out to memorials and that kind of thing. And the Republicans then, as the you know, as many of their Democratic you know, compatriots were out at events and that kind of thing, then decided to sneak in and start a session of the legislature where they passed they held a vote to a half-empty House to override the Democratic governor's budget veto. So basically said, hey guys, we're taking today off. It's 9/11. Go do your thing. It's cool. And then when all the Democrats went to, like, you know, this event they had planned, they all snuck in, held a vote, and fucking overrode this veto when, like, none of their opposition was there. And for some dumbass reason, that, like, still applies. I don't know why. I guess that's how the law is written, you know. And it's like they have audio of the speaker of the state legislature saying, yeah, there'll be no votes tomorrow, so you guys go do your thing. And, like, they fucking held a vote, just fucked them up. It's like, shit like that. It's like that kind of, you know, lying, cheating fucking shenanigans, right? Which should be illegal, but isn't. That's technically not illegal. It's just they fucking cheated, right? You know? Another one, after 2018, in Wisconsin, the Republicans attempted to pass laws to limit the power of the incoming Democratic governor. So they lose the governorship in the election, right? And since they knew when the governor took over, he'll be able to do all these different things, they passed a whole shitload of laws to strip away all the governor's powers. So it's like, okay, well, your governor will be a Democrat, but he can't actually do anything. Right. That happened. They tried the same thing in California in 2016, and that one didn't pass because, you know, there is thankfully a majority of Democrats in the House in California, you know, using institutional power to further your own gains, right? In Virginia in 2018, right, the Democrats won the governorship there, and the Republican governor just refused to you know, refused to step down. He just said, nope, I won. And basically what it is that in Virginia, if you can prove that there were, you know, significant anomalies in the vote, then the state legislature decides the election. Right? And so basically it's like the guy just said, nope, I'm not stepping down. And he forced a vote, you know, right? So that, like, the state legislature, which was happened to be covered, you know, by Republicans, decided that election for him. So I mean, that's just the most blatant fucking power play. It's like, oh, I lost. Oh, well, I'm going to use this technicality to fucking maintain power here. Why should a law like that even exist? You know, that's ridiculous. If anything, it should have like triggered a recount, right? A recount or even a runoff election, but not, oh, the legislature decides the fucking election. You know. Ugh. In June of 2018, there was a climate change bill that in Virginia also. Oh, sorry, this was in Oregon. In Oregon, there was a climate change bill that the Republicans didn't like, and instead of allowing the vote to happen where they would lose and this climate change bill would get passed, all the Republicans just skipped town. They just left. And the problem is that if you don't have a certain amount of people in your people present, then you can't have quorum, and if you don't have quorum, you can't have a vote. It's like you're not allowed to have a vote to an empty house, right? So they just basically just bailed, said fine, we're out of here, and that way you can't have a vote. So I guess the law in Oregon is that the governor said, okay, I'm going to send the police to go grab you and drag you back here, because that's the law. And when they did that, then groups like the Oath Keepers and other right-wing militia groups basically pledged to defend them, with violence. They said, oh, if the cops try to drag these people back, like the law says, they're going to they're going to have to come up against us, right? And so they backed off, The governor didn't want to cause like a fucking massacre. Backed off. The vote never happened. The law never passed. There you go. Using institutional power to further your own gains. Right? That's the most undemocratic fucking thing ever. I mean, Jesus Christ, And we're not even talking about, God, we haven't even gotten into Donald Trump. Let's not forget Donald Trump was impeached twice for exactly this same kind of thing, for using institutional power for his own personal gains. The first time, right, the whole, Mueller probe thing and all that, that was, that really wasn't what he was impeached for, but, he had the Mueller probe, which resulted in 10 indictments, indicting 10 things that he should have been indicted for but wasn't, because he's a sitting president and the DOJ will not indict a sitting president, which is horseshit, Of course, they did say that he could be, indicted for these things after he left office, which I hope he actually is, but is most likely not going to happen. But let's not forget that the Mueller probe also resulted in multiple people going to prison. Paul Manafort, Michael Cohen, Michael Flynn, Rick Gates, George Papadopoulos, and a few more that I can't remember, all went to prison because of that. What was the Mueller probe all about? Well, I'm sure you remembered it was just too many people in the Trump campaign had connections to Russian foreign nationals, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point for anybody who's been paying attention that there was some shenanigans going on in the 2016 election, information being stolen from the Democrats through hacked servers and things like that by, Russian spies, essentially, Guccifer 2.0 and that kind of thing. And, the Mueller probe was all about, well, was any of that used for Trump's benefit, and did he know about it? And they concluded that yes, it was done for Trump's benefit, and they were not able to conclude that he knew about it. So yes, there was some election abnormalities in 2016. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is true, right? The Mueller report is up there for anybody to read. It's just because when it came out, Donald Trump got his, Bill Barr, right, his fucking attorney general, to get in front of it and basically like downplay the report to make it look less damning than it actually was. and create negative media buzz about it. And now that has actually become the Mueller report is now firmly entrenched in the conservative alternate reality conspiracy theories as just a one big empty plate of nothing burgers, when in real life it is the exact opposite. Right. Any other president probably would have been impeached over that report, but not Donald Trump because he's a Republican. Right? If it was a Democrat, they would have been impeached. But no. It's Republican. Republicans can get away with anything. Right. Donald Trump actually was impeached, of course, I'm sure you all remember, for using state power to strong-arm the Ukraine into digging up dirt on Joe Biden. I'm sure you all remembered Trump's perfect phone call. Let's also remember that Donald Trump did it, right? We have audio of that phone call. We have witnesses, right? We know what he said, and it's pretty blatantly fucking obvious what he was trying to do. And the thing about it is that all of the Republicans who voted to not convict him also know that he fucking did it. And he got away because, the Senate had a majority Republicans. That's why. And that's the same reason why he wasn't convicted the second time he was fucking impeached as well. This time for inciting a mob to go attack the Capitol and murder his own vice president because he couldn't leverage that institutional power to steal the election. Right? Go, Mitch McConnell himself said it. Donald Trump is guilty. He said it himself, and then he voted to not convict because he's a Republican. Right? I mean, how much more blatant and in your face do you have to get when, the guy that's your biggest defender in the Senate is saying you're guilty, and he still fucking, votes to acquit you? How does that make any fucking sense? How does it make any sense? How is that logical? Why is he saying that he's guilty but he still voted to quit? The only reason why is because Donald Trump's a Republican. That's the only reason why. Unfucking believable. Let's not forget that shit, folks. I mean, it's pretty blatantly fucking obvious by this point. I don't know. They've always been cheats. They've always been liars. I mean, if you really think, and this is something I want to mention. I'm going to kind of end on this, but then I'll read a few of the comments here. This is something that, I don't know, you ever watch Tom Hartman? He's one of listen to Tom Hartman. I guess he has a radio show, but he's also on YouTube and stuff like that. Tom Hartman is one of the very few AM radio hosts who comes at it from a liberal perspective. He's probably one of the most, I would say most successful, you know what I mean, who's actually on the radio, right? Talk radio is dominated by conservative voices, and it's nice to hear someone who's, even to the left of me. Tom Hartman is to the left of he's to the left of me. He's very, very liberal progressive, right? He's also very intelligent and really knows his stuff, really knows his politics. And one thing that he mentioned a few months back was that it's quite possible that the last legitimate Republican president that we've had was Dwight Eisenhower. Right? And it's because, Eisenhower was elected in 1953, right? The next Republican president after that was Richard Nixon, and then of course the Watergate scandal kind of broke for Richard Nixon. And what was Watergate? It was basically the exact, it was stealing from the Democratic Party and using that information, stealing voter information essentially from the Democratic Party, using that information to undermine the election. That's essentially what Watergate was all about. So there's a pretty good chance that, Nixon may have cheated in that election. That's what he got busted for. He got busted for, that's what Watergate was essentially all about. Right. Ronald Reagan, of course, is our next Republican president. He had the October surprise. What was the October surprise? I'm sure you hear that a lot now. What's going to be the October surprise? This is where that comes from. Okay. Ronald Reagan was accused of... so at the time, there was this hostage crisis in Iran, right? Some students in Iran were basically taken hostage, and, the Carter administration was trying to negotiate with them. And they actually tried to rescue them, and that went really bad, and some people died and stuff like that. There was a movie about it that had Ben Affleck, starred Ben Affleck. I can't remember what it's called. It came out a few years ago and won an Academy Award and shit. Right? And it turns out that the Reagan campaign was communicating with Iran and basically telling them, we'll pay you if you do not release these hostages until Ronald Reagan becomes president. Right. They were essentially undermining efforts to release these hostages. They were and this is what led to the Iran-Contra affair. Right? So, long story short, the Iran-Contra affair is pretty involved, and I'm not really sure if I understand it all myself, but it has to do with, money being basically being paid off to Iran to keep hostages, and then some of this getting funneled into illegally arming the Contras, and it's I'm not even really sure what the fuck happened myself there. But this is why the minute Ronald Reagan becomes president, those hostages get released. It's because they negotiated for them. Argo, that was the name of it. Yeah, thank you so much, Lewis. See ya. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining, by the way. Thank you, Lewis. Take it easy. Yeah, that's pretty much why the nanosecond Reagan becomes president, those hostages get released. And that's such an open secret that it's entered the lexicon. People now say October surprise. What's going to be the October surprise this election? That's where that came from. So, yep, kind of cheating there. Of course, we all know what happened with George Bush Jr. and the, stolen election there. The Supreme Court, that has a conservative majority, decides that they're going to stop the recount in Florida. And if that recount would have continued, we would have had, Al Gore would have won the election. And it's so we all know that, that's essentially been proven as well. There's been multiple recounts after the fact. And now we have Donald Trump, who got elected with some help from the Russians. And it turns out that, like we mentioned a little earlier, the Russian agents hack the DNC, take the voter information, use it to basically target certain places in the United States where voters are vulnerable. And, was there collusion with the Russians? We don't know. That cannot be proven if there was actually collusion, but we know that part fucking happened. We know that was true, so it's this is something Tom Harton brought up. There's a very good chance that we haven't really had a legitimately elected, Republican president who did not cheat in 50 years. Now, that might be vastly oversimplifying it. There may be many people out there who say, President X had no idea of this, or President Y didn't know what was going on, or maybe these things were done behind their back, whatever. But it does kind of, I think it illustrates the point there, the point I'm trying to make is that these presidents definitely took advantage of institutional power. They took advantage of institutional power to tip the scales of their elections, right? You know, and it just kind of makes that point. It's like, this is not something that's new. You know, it's not a new phenomenon. It's not something that just started happening in the last couple of elections. It's something that our country has had a problem with for decades, all the way up the stream, everywhere from state elections to state governorships, all the way up to national elections for the president of the United States. You know, and every single time we hear about somebody cheating, you know, every single time we hear about somebody trying to pass laws to benefit their side, you know, to reduce voting, right, or whatever, it's every single time it's always a fucking Republican. Every time. The Republican Party is essentially a criminal enterprise, you know, and they get away with it every fucking time. And some of this shit that we just talked about here is going to pass. Some of those laws are going to pass in one form or another. And it's like, I don't know, will it be enough? You know, maybe next time around enough people in Georgia get, you know, the vote gets suppressed enough to where they can, like, win their Senate seats back. You know, who knows? We'll find out, I guess. So, anyway, you know, this is the kind of thing I would like to. If there's anybody out there, you know, if you're a conservative, or if you have conservative relatives, conservative friends, and they talk about voter suppression and how you need to stop the steal and all of that shit, these are the things that you should bring up to them. You know, this is your counter argument here. Like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's one way that you can counter argue. You know, one thing that you can bring up, make them defend this stuff. Be like, hey, okay, well, what about here in, like, you know, what about in Idaho when they want to fucking, like, limit the drop-off boxes? How does that help? How does that stop the steal? You know, you got to make them think about this kind of stuff, right? If you want to have any hope of deprogramming your relatives or your friends, you know, like, you can't. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. You can't, like, bullshit has to be challenged. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, okay, I got through most of my material, but I still have a whole bunch left over. But that's okay. It'll be, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it next time. Let's read some of the comments we got here before we end it. It's already at 2:17, but I want to go a little longer because, you know, as you guys know, my stream this morning got cut short, so I feel like I got to get my money's worth here. Let's read some of the comments. What do we got? Let me just get some water. Shit, there's a crack in my ceiling. Fuck, I didn't even notice that. God damn. That sucks. Anyway. Let's see. Lewis the Hedgehog. Could we introduce the minimum wage increase in a later legislation piece? I don't think so. I don't think it'll pass. Even if we try to do a standalone with the minimum wage increase, it'll just be the same thing that we saw this time. You know, I don't think that we're going to be able to pass it, or eventually if we do, I think it'll be less than $15 an hour. I think we'll have to take a compromise to like $12.50 or some shit like that, you know. And unfortunately, that's just where the country's at. That's where, you know, the conservative elements in this country are, and I'm including conservative Democrats in there. Those 8 conservative Democrats that didn't vote for the $15 minimum wage, it's not going to get past them. It's not going to get past them, and I'll be surprised if we manage to get any increase in the minimum wage at all. It just doesn't seem to be something that they're concerned about. You know what I mean? Let's see. Lewis a Hedgehog. They want free speech. They don't want free speech. They want freedom from responsibility. Yeah, you know, that is kind of where it's pointing to, the you know, this pushback against cancel culture. This idea that they're blaming the pushback from the public against hateful rhetoric and things like that on cancel culture. And it's like, no, people are, you know, what is cancel culture anyway? right? Cancel culture is basically just boycotting somebody because they do something you don't like. And, in real life, the conservatives that's where, I mean, they're masters of that shit. The conservatives have been boycotting people for decades. They boycotted Disney, for example, because Disney, back in the 90s, would give benefits to domestic partners. Right? That kind of thing. They routinely boycott companies and stuff like that for putting, immoral things in their content, or because, a company A or whatever supports abortion, or company B, like, you know, supports fucking gay rights, that kind of thing. So that's really all cancel culture is. Cancel culture is basically using shame when somebody says something you don't like and refusing to do business with them. And that's a thing that the right wing in this country is very, very good at, especially the religious right wing. They basically came up with that shit. So, but that's not, freedom of speech is just exactly what you're saying. Freedom of speech is not, you're not allowed to say anything bad about me. That's not what that is. It's not, I'm allowed to say whatever I want, and if you disagree with me, then you're, restricting my freedom of speech. That's bullshit. You are allowed to say whatever you want. Other people are also allowed to express their opinions about what you say, and if they think what you say is bullshit, and if they think what you say is racist or hateful, they have the freedom of speech to express that as well. So I think you're exactly right there, Lewis. You know what I mean? Moving on. 1911 greater than all. The difference is there is a largest migrant convoy that Biden is attempting to deal with. Walls are used to protect things of value. Yeah, who cares about the convoy? You notice that these convoys only show up in the news whenever, whenever there's something we need to distract from. That's when these convoys show up. One of them conveniently showed up right after the 2018 midterms. You know what I mean? There's a migrant convoy. You better vote for us, or these illegal aliens are going to break into the country and spread diseases among everyone. You're seeing the same thing now. There was a thing that the governor of Texas put out a statement saying that Joe Biden is trying to force illegal immigrants to come into the country and give everybody COVID. And he put this tweet out the day after he removed all COVID-19 restrictions from Texas. So it's like, oh, you don't give a shit about Texas enough to make people wear masks or to socially distance or whatever, but you'll blame, all of a sudden when it comes to this illegal immigrant thing, oh, now it's fucking COVID. Now you care about COVID. It's like, get the fuck out of here. It's horseshit. The thing is, there's always these convoys of people, right? There's always people trying to come into the United States, even all throughout the Trump years, right? Even through all those years, all that time when they were taking people's children away from them to try to deter them, it didn't really reduce the number of illegal immigrants coming into the country, right? It didn't. Did it really go down? No, right? Why didn't it work, right? I mean, I wouldn't come to the United States if they were going to, illegally at least, if they were going to take my children away. In fact, I wouldn't come to the United States at all, even legally, if I heard about that shit. But why are these people coming here, even if they know that there's a chance their children may be removed from it, they'll never see them again? Because that's how desperate they are, Why do you think people come here in the first place, man? It's to get jobs. And it's like, and even now, with how shitty the job market is, right? The fact that, we have 20 million people or whatever out of work right now, it's still better here than it is in the places they're coming from. Some people are coming here because, there's fucking gangs and cartels and shit that are trying to kill them. Other people are coming for, other reasons like that, asylum, right? Most of the people that are coming here to make a better lives for themselves, because this is the United States. This is America. And in the United States, you can come here with nothing and you can make a living for yourself. You can get a job, and your job that you get working in a 7-Eleven or working in a meat packing plant, or working in a restaurant or whatever for minimum wage is still better than the job that you had back in Ecuador or Guatemala or whatever, right? You still make more money here, and that kind of nails it home. It's like, you know, even $7 an hour for that. That's how desperate these people are. Is when they're coming here, and even $7 an hour is like something that's preferable from where they're coming from. And $7 an hour is not enough to live on. It's not enough to live on here, but they're doing it anyway. That's how desperate they are. We want to fucking, if you want to help people in the country, right, increase their fucking wages. Right? Seriously, if you want to help people, vote to increase the minimum wage. You'll fucking help people, all right? Seriously. Anyway, moving on. Moving on. Lewis the Hedgehog. She's lecturing us about bullying. Oh, you're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, yeah. Blah blah blah. Let's see. Impeachment. We should go to. Let's see. 1911. Low yes. There were impeachment emails sent from her office to me claiming she was going to impeach Biden. I assumed this was some sort of fraud and just sent it to spam. Nope, that was really her. That was really her. She really said that her first day she was going to impeach Joe Biden, and she didn't because she underestimated the amount of work that it took. That was her excuse for not getting that done. So, yeah, it does sound like spam, doesn't it? It sounds like something you'd read on The Onion, doesn't it? But no, that was true. This is who's making our laws right now. Let's see. Lewis the Hedgehog. People who first envisioned an orbit to surface weapon were the Nazis. They would use mirrors to focus sunlight on a spot on the Earth, but the design never made it off the drawing board. Would that actually work? I mean, so essentially like a giant sort of magnifying glass, like kind of how you hold a magnifying glass and burn an ant on the ground. Like a focusing lens or mirror. I don't know. Maybe it would work. I don't know. I mean, seems like all you'd have to do to defeat that weapon is just kind of like, go indoors or go under the shade. The shade of a tree. I guess unless it got hot enough to burn the tree up or some shit. I don't know. I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but it doesn't sound plausible to me. But then again, I have zero doubt that what you're saying is absolutely true. I completely 100% believe what you just said right there, because it makes perfect sense. The Nazis had lots of very weird and esoteric ideas when it came to weaponry. Most of the shit never got off the drawing board. So, but they were actually the guys who created the V2 rockets and stuff like that, and they kind of had a technological edge over the Allies. Things may have turned out differently if they were able to actually field some of those weapons. So, thank God history turned out the way it did, huh? I don't know. Let's see. Cat. Voter fraud is not a way to win an election. The idea is ridiculous. Yeah, it is. It is ridiculous. And, the fact is there's been something like 300 confirmed cases of voter fraud. Something like that. It's under 400 confirmed cases of voter fraud in the last 30 years. I actually talked about that in an earlier stream too. It's like the number is so insignificantly small that it's just not a problem. It's not a problem at all. This is literally like the Republicans using a conspiracy theory to oppress people. Let's see. Dynacat. Young Turks just uploaded Biden throws voting rights reform under the bus, but I haven't watched that yet. Not exactly sure what's going on with that. I didn't get a chance to read about that, but I did see the headline, and I think what it is that it's not being prioritized at the moment. Like right now their priority is the COVID relief, because that's the biggest problem facing the country right now. COVID relief, people losing their jobs because of COVID-19. The states, like I said earlier, the state's running out of money, right? So they're trying to get that out as fast as they can. And unfortunately, Congress only seems to be able to concentrate on one fucking thing at a time. Right? So, of course, I'll have to watch that and see exactly what's happening, but if I had to guess, that would probably be it. It would probably be like he's not focusing on, you know, voter, voter reform or whatever. We'll have to see what's going on. Anyway, Life of Gods. Hey, thank you for joining. Haven't seen you around here before. Thanks, man. What are your thoughts on self-described neoliberals online? I think we'll save that one for next week because it's we're at 2.5 hours and I got to get going here. So no, that's good. Thank you, Life of Gods, for joining, and we will save that subject for next week. And give me some time to think about it, because I'm not even really sure I have much of an opinion right now. But let me think about that for a bit, and then we'll talk about it next time. So anyway, I think that's it for now. I think we're gonna go ahead and end this. Thank you guys so much for joining. I really appreciate you coming back. I know usually I do this at 11 a.m. on Saturdays, and my internet access just died. It died, and it didn't come back till like 1 o'clock. So thank you all. I had to reschedule today, but hopefully that won't happen again. And before I leave, I got to do my ending stuff, First thing I got to say is please like and subscribe, And it's dumb that you always have to say that every time, but it works. It works. If you actually say it, people actually do it. So please like and subscribe, and that way the algorithm will suggest me to other people. And then I need to show you my ending stuff here. So first off, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, this here is my wrong one. This here is my SD shop. I sell stuff. I sell prints, things like that. If you like what I do and you want to support me, and you want to support me monetarily, please consider buying something. This is the Wall of Flesh. This is the piece that we did over the last 5 or 6 streams. I got it up on the shop, and that's what it looks like. So if you want to just get a digital copy of it, you can just go here and just right click and download it if you want to. That's totally cool. If you actually want one of these, right, I am going to give you guys a coupon. The coupon is Stream1. That's my coupon. So let me just type that in the thing, right? All right, I can spell. That's the coupon, and you will, oh, well, here. It's actually just Stream. It's not any weird, case like that. God damn it, it's because I hit caps lock. It's fucking, okay, I can type. Hang on 1 second. God damn it, fuck you. Sorry, E-A-M. It's because the keyboard is way over here. I'm trying to say. Stream 1. That is the, can I just delete that? Is that possible? Let me remove that. There you go. Stream 1, that's the coupon. And if you want one of these, that coupon will give you $9.99 off. And I think it actually includes shipping too. But if I get any orders for this, I just don't pay the shipping. I'll just send it to you. So if you want one of these and you want one for free, please use that code STREAM1 and I will send you one for free. And that will be available until this Tuesday. So you've got 3 days to order these, right? And I've only have about 10 of them. So once that 10 is gone, that's it. Right? So if I get like an order for 50 of these or some shit, the first 10 get it free. I unfortunately am not made of money, so I can't be sending out like, 50 free scrolls or whatever. But first 10 who orders this, free. So if you want it, use that coupon, Stream1. And if you don't want that, if you want one of these, it'll give you $10 off on any of these other ones too. So that's my gift to you guys. I'm not advertising that anywhere. That's my gift to you guys. Thank you for joining my streams. You get $10 off or one of those for free. And anyway, so that's my let me just put this down in the thing if you guys want to, check it out and collect that, be my guest. I also have a webcomic. It's hawanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. It's got ninjas and people fighting and kung fu and stuff like that. This is hawanja.com, and I update this every once in a while. I've been kind of lagging lately, but I got another one that I'm working on right now, so probably sometime this week that'll get updated. If you want to see more of my artwork, you can see it here at this is my DeviantArt site. I'll copy that, put that down in the thing too. So if you want to see the kind of work that I do, here's the thing we were just looking at. There it is. Right. So, and you can download these for free and stuff if you want to get like a digital copy of any of this stuff, feel free. Check me out there on Hawanja, on DeviantArt. And my last thing is UCD Videos. This is my other YouTube channel where I talk about video games, and I do toy unboxings, and I do I do gaming streams, and I talk about movies, shit like that. So if you want to see some non-political content from me, please check me out on UCD Videos. So I think this is pretty much it for us for this week's stream. Thank you guys again for joining me again. Afterwards, I really, really appreciate that, for coming back after my stream died earlier. Thank you, Dynacat. Thank you, 1911. Greater than all. Good to see you again, man. Thank you, Lewis the Hedgehog. Always, you're great. And One Life of Gods. Thank you for joining. And I think that's pretty much everybody who commented this time. You guys are great. And I'll see you next week at 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. Hopefully my internet will not die again. And talk to you